We are joined with the excellent Mike from Faraday Research, Jeremiah Pop, Exotic Propulsion, and of course Simon C. next to Bert and Ernie down there. And the AI artwork was done, the intro there by Zertis, and the background, as well as the thumbnail for the video done by Thomas over at Paranoid American.
Yeah, I love that Cadillacs avatar. That gets me every time.
All right. So tonight, Mike, I guess sorry about that, getting a bit late for you out east. Do you want to start off with what you've been working on a little bit, brother?
Yeah, just been working on the Adams motor. I've been working on doing load testing, scope testing, trying to get my generator coils to do some work as well. So it's a big learning curve, new machine, new components, new everything. So I'm just trying to get everything figured out. Let me just get my camera on here. Just do a quick little demo what I'm up to. Switch my camera around.
Demo, Mr. Mike, Faraday Research, and I will post Mike's channel here in the live chat for everybody. Make sure to go to subscribe to all channels and like and subscribe on all platforms. We are live on Twitter, Rumble. Oh, and we lost Mike. I guess he will be right back. It always happens. You hit the wrong button on the cell phone and it takes you out, or on the mouse. It's so annoying. He will be right back as he was trying to... There we go.
Sorry about that.
No worries, brother.
Hit the wrong button. So, yeah, I'll just start it up and get it running here.
That is a damn nice build, Mike.
Yeah, it weighs a ton. I finally got it on wheels.
Generation 4 or 5 now?
This is third.
Third? Okay, looking good for number 3.
Get it up to speed here.
Yeah, I love how it's in a server rack.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just makes everything cooler when you put it in a rack.
Bulb going. So what I did with this bulb here, that's power is coming off 3 pickup coils. And what I did was I bought a high voltage circuit, and I'm getting 125 volt spikes coming off this bulb just by the 3 coils getting the flux off the wheel. So I got a method of charging capacitors, whatever I want with this. Now I got the main load there, that's 18 watts. I've actually put watt hour meters to the wall and actually took proper measurements of what these things are. So I'm looking at about 18 watts. So I found the sweet spot's about 75% of the speed. And right now it's showing, I'll show you the numbers live.
Yeah, so I'm also noticing, interestingly, that it's messing with your audio, which is kind of fun. That usually is a good sign.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
It's throwing a huge, it's throwing a huge EMF coming off this thing. So on the left is the input, and then the output, it's not giving me a proper reading because transducer is putting it in a high frequency and it's buggering up the meter. So you can see what the motor is putting in on the left, or the battery, what the battery's taking the Redmond device. So
this is real science happening live, doing the tests, showing the EMF field interference in these magnetic
batteries. I got a meter, and whenever I put the meter by it, it goes crazy. So it's throwing a lot of flux off the wheel. They're 1-inch diameter N52 neodymiums. It's spinning at about 1,500 RPM.
That's fun.
That's flying.
1,500 RPM. That's pretty decent. I'm gonna have to send you out some of my monoatomic Ormus GANs material to put on there and see if that actually increases the EM field.
Hold on. Actually, I have it handy here. You can kind of get an idea. Like, this thing goes hot the second I bring it anywhere close to it.
Yeah, Mike's audio is cutting in and out because of the EM field that this machine is creating.
Yeah, normally I'd say, that sucks, but in this case, it's a good thing.
And like
Gauss is going over 200. 147. And this is about 5-6 inches away. And it's just going crazy. Bring it near a coil, goes nuts.
You've got your fellow electrical engineers in the live chat going nuts.
That's good.
It is. It's a pretty build.
It is.
It turned out really good. I'm really happy with the build. These are all 3D printed. I designed the coil holders. Used Fusion 360 for that. 3D printed everything.
Nah, Jack, creating no ionizing radiation. That's my job.
Speaking of, if anyone in the audience is looking to get into doing CAD themselves, Solid Edge is now free to use.
Ooh.
If you don't mind the watermark.
I had to bring in BenderBot to say, oh, I can't whistle. Still didn't work. But that is one sexy machine. Woo-wee.
Still got a lot of work to do to it. I want to get it validated eventually by George Hathaway. He's not too far from me, so.
Oh man, the stroboscopic motion looks so freaking cool.
Yeah, it looks funny with the wheel. It looks like two different motions going.
It's very flying saucer, Mike.
Yeah, I love it. So actually, I got two spark gap switches on the inside here. So I got one spark gap switch there. Yeah, I went all out on the wiring on this thing.
What's the size of that cap? That thing's huge.
It's 80 volts at 4,000 microfarad.
It's just so absurdly large.
And there's that high voltage circuit I was telling you about right there. So it's pumping 125 volts spike voltage.
Thanks for reminding me about that circuit. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was what, $22 on Amazon.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of it. I was just wondering, like, what's my best way to generate the 60-volt charge I need for my time field generator? And that's and I have a bunch of them. I'm just glad you showed me that.
At 24 volts, you can get 400 volt spikes.
Yeah, I'm pulling mine out now. Thank you very much.
So, David, that's actually a very good question. How much of these processes happen spontaneously in nature? So, all the time, everywhere.
Yeah.
Yes, we're doing nothing that nature doesn't do 1,000 times better.
Right? Just finally figuring out, like Victor Schauberger's Imitate Nature and Nikola Tesla's.
Let me put it this way. In a few generations, people will look back on this like the water cycle, probably.
Now, everybody, sorry to jump in. See, a lot of people go wrong with these pulse motors. Most people run them at 12 volts. I've seen people run them at 9 volts. Mine's running at 50 volts. Start playing with the higher voltages. You'll get way better gains. And the amount of current that is required to run the motor decreases. This motor is designed to run on voltage, not current.
The higher the voltage, the higher the RPM you can run at, the less current means less resistive losses. So it makes it a lot easier to get all of your power back out of the circuit because you're not dealing with resistive losses and nothing ever gets hot.
Well, I ran this motor for a whole week and it only lost 2 volts.
And I'm sure everything was still completely cool.
Yep. Doesn't heat up at all. If anything, it cools down a bit.
Right, and that's the key. As soon as they start cooling down, it's pulling in energy from the environment, that endothermic electromagnetic implosive energy that like John Searle talked about a lot, and a lot of these magnetic motors, these EM field generators, they create a cool environment, a cooling environment, the exact opposite of our current wasteful, hot, resistant electrical motors, where it's wasting energy in heat, needing more fuel and electricity going, energy going in. These sort of technologies do the exact opposite, and that's where they get a lot of their over efficiency from.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
for example, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, I was just going to say that one other cool feature with this motor is it kind of demonstrates defeating the lens effect because I'm using the make and break switch. I'm using actually a 4-pin automotive relay switch, and I have a way to actually advance the timing on it to make it trigger a lot faster. If I grab that wheel and slow it down, the motor does not draw any more current.
Yeah, and for you science heads out there, I've tested this on the oscilloscope and verified that it's true. I'm quite well versed in electronics and semiconductors, and I have gotten my hands on some of the fastest available, some of the best components. They cannot even begin to compete with something as analog and crude as a physical mechanical switch. In fact, my fastest time transient for rise time and fall time was about maybe 45 nanoseconds on the semiconductors when you account for the T rise, T fall, your turn on delay, and your cutoff delay. I've checked it against a mechanical switch, 2 nanoseconds.
Yeah.
And I've actually gotten speeds as fast as 500 picoseconds. Mechanical is a beautiful thing. It generates a really unique event, a plasma event, when it disconnects. And that plasma is massively more conductive than a semiconductor, and its disconnect is the key. It shuts off hard.
Yeah, it's make and break. And I put it up to the scope. I actually have some scope readings on my YouTube channel under the community section. You can actually see the waveform. And I was peak to peak, high voltage spikes were hitting 760. So about 3/4 of a kilowatt of high voltage spikes.
Scott de Blois, the fourth musketeer, is Simon. His expertise is in research, CAD file design,
3D printing.
And a variety of other things that I can't even begin to list all the stuff that basically he's skilled at. And he doesn't do so much of the experiments, but he assists all of us experimenters along the entire path, and he understands all of it. So
I'm a support class.
One that we can't go without.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it. So it's just trying to perfect what I have, right? You have to also decide too, what do you want it to do? Drive things, or do you want to charge batteries with it that would run inverters? There's a couple ways you could go about it, right? So for me, it's to charge battery banks so I can run inverters, so I can run true loads.
Yeah, and Mike, since we were talking pre-show about this too, you might want to bring this up. Is that glow tape?
Yep, it is.
That's freaking cool. Come on. I wanted to say, educate everyone about the importance of pulsed charging and discharging of batteries, particularly lead acid batteries.
Yeah, lead acid batteries kind of have a really cool makeup, chemical makeup. They tend to, if you put a load on it for a given period of time, and you shut the power off, they'll actually regenerate the power. It'll actually bounce back. A lot of batteries won't actually do that. The other one is after a while, the lead acid batteries, the plates get sulfated, and that's usually when your battery goes bye-bye. With pulse charging at a high frequency, high voltage, actually desulfates the battery plates. And because of this, you could actually resurrect batteries that are clinically dead and bring them back to life again by using this method.
Yeah, and as a proof to that, we've started with brand new lead-acid batteries, and we know what their capacity is. If you charge them with a steady state current and discharge them with a steady state current and measure their amp hours, they're usually pretty close to the manufacturer's rating. But if you pulse charge them with high voltage impulses at high currents and discharge them using the same method, you can get over double the capacity of the manufacturer's rating by using that method. There's only one catch, as we were talking about, Mike, earlier, and you want to bring that up?
Oh, about what? About the...
Yeah, once you pulse charge and pulse discharge, you can't use a conventional.
That's right. You have to use the same method constantly. Bendini actually talked about this actually about a year before he died. And he says what you have to do is actually kill the battery, take it down to the lowest possible voltage you can, and then charge it basically from the ground up using cold electricity or whatever, radiant spikes, whatever you want to call it, and charge it that way. And after that's done, you have to continue to use that charging method. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I verified double capacity. A normal, like for example, a AG65, a 65 amp hour, 12 volt car battery, we've been able to get well over 110 amp hours out of it.
Wow, that's good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's because when I looked at the plates too, and I had to pop the caps off, it was one of the old maintenanceable batteries before they decided to super glue everything down into place, which of course we cracked those off anyways and still maintenance them, but they don't want you to. Anyways, we looked at the plates pretty closely, and it pits the plates. It puts all kinds of little puck marks in it that are extremely reminiscent of what Bob Grenier on Martin Fletcher Memorial Project shows, and it's very reminiscent of exotic vacuum object damage. But that increases the surface area many fold, which means the battery capacity is increased significantly.
You know what? When you told me that tonight, I never even thought of that.
It there you are, man. Took you long enough.
Glad you could make it.
Sorry. How's it going?
We love you anyways.
Hey, only 20 minutes in. That's all right. I've showed up a lot later to his shows.
That's a good point. So. I have a crumpet. Have you ever had a crumpet before?
They are delicious, especially with butter and honey.
And tea or coffee.
It's new to me.
A crumpet?
It's a British,
kind of like
an English muffin almost, correct?
Yeah, but it's different. Yeah. It's got what is it? Has it got baking?
It's a British version.
I think they use baking soda or baking carbonate instead of. Is that how that works?
Almost like those southern little baked goods that you make that go with sausages and gravy. What are they called? You know what I'm talking about? Little circular, usually.
Like the ash cakes or whatever.
It's biscuits. Yeah, it's kind of like a biscuit.
It's like, but it's whether or not it's yeasted or sourdough'd or whether or not you use sodium carbonate to make it like bubble. I think the difference between an English muffin and a crumpet, but I could be wrong.
Kosher flatbread is pretty darn good too.
Yeah, I like the idea of the Scotch ash cake. This is definitely not what the show was about a minute ago. I'm sorry.
But what it is about, and I'm really
time for a tea break. I'm down for tea and crumpets, right? Like maybe the English are almost waking up. Is it that time? No, it's still pretty early in the UK.
Miss Anonymous
in Australia.
617
Australians are Marmite
said that they are bad at math. Otherwise, they would do experiments. You definitely do not need to be good at math to do experiments because a lot of the time is just brute forcing every possible iteration of something to see which one has the best outcome.
And a lot of times math can have correct, parallel equations that seem correct, but then you run the physical experiment and you get something completely different.
Yeah, that's because the math is based on wrong parameters.
Yeah.
Like for example, if we just take this very stark and extremely critical example for this research, most people don't know this, but all of our current electromagnetic theory and equations are based on Maxwell's findings using only copper. Copper has an electron drift velocity, which is really slow because it's a fairly massive conductor. All of those factors change when the electron drift velocity changes because a brand new type of field that's already present in copper but not very prolifically pronounced emerges from different conductors with a high drift velocity. And this field exists not just simply at the surface of the wire or in the evanescent wave that surrounds it as we consider for high frequency signals, but this is an entirely large field, and it's what we call a geometrically amplified relativistic field. That term was coined by Richard Van Dijk and his research with displacement field drives. So there are actually 6 different fields being exchanged by 2 parallel conductors carrying current. And it upends Maxwell's math. And I'm not saying Van Dijk's math is necessarily correct, but his idea is absolutely right. And so we have to consider these new ideas and these new fields and understand that Maxwell's equations, as they were, are based on one particular type of material. And it's also material science. Electrical engineering is normally not thought of as a material science, but we have to consider in terms of how we're dealing over unity, how we're dealing with advanced propulsion and gravitational effects, that these things really do matter a lot.
Yep.
And quickly,
I'm learning a lot of stuff tonight. You know what I learned tonight? Don't put 250 volts into an inverter.
fried.
I smoked the sucker tonight. Oh my god!
That's
I had a brain fart, and I decided to hook it up, and I put over.
You gotta be careful there, Mr. Mikey. Luckily,
it was epic, man. It was epic.
Wait, what went down though? You put too much of a charge through it?
Yeah, it only takes 12 volts DC, and I put 250 volts.
Oh my goody! And you didn't get this on camera.
I think
the
all I heard was poof.
The voltage could be whatever if it's not an ampage situation, right? Like, so that's kind of the thing you've been playing with, all kinds of different electricity. And why did this go this way?
Did you get the magic blue smoke?
Not blue, black. It was black.
Oh no.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, I fried it completely. It's gonzo.
Right, but
that was only 30. I don't feel too bad. It was only $30 for.
Hey, at least you didn't fry a true sine inverter.
I got a 3,000 watt in my. Actually, I got 3 of them in my storage locker. So yeah.
Nice, right? Exactly.
Yeah, but you never have to feel bad about a modified sine.
The one I believe is a true sine waveform, if I'm not mistaken. It's brand new too.
Hello, Annie.
Aloha.
What's up?
So we've been doing some science stuff. Welcome, Balanced Blackwood. But the thing is, there's also kind of a spiritual connection to this as well. I don't know. We were talking about Mike Faraday research's recent experiments. You want to elaborate a bit on what you've been doing?
Yeah,
aside from blowing up your most recent one.
Since you missed it.
Yeah, my blunder of the day.
Well, you got to go through them in order if you're doing real research and experiments. But
when I was doing experiments with the piezos, hooking that up to the coil, I was finding I was getting some kind of therapeutic effects that, if you have like sore joints or whatever, I would just hold on to the piezo and let it arc on my finger. And I was finding that it was actually helping with pain. And
yeah.
By the way, Mike, you're not the only person to report that. I've heard that from at least 2 other people.
Well, I mean, TENS units are a dime a dozen at this point. So,
but even more so, like the Keshi coil, triple solenoid coils, and then his pain pens. And when you use them together, and like my mom does energy healing, I thought she was like crazy for like the first 20 years of my life or 25 years of my life. And then I guess 30 years. Damn. And
how old am I now? Yeah, exactly.
So then my first dog was suffering. So my first dog was suffering from a giant nose tumor, and my mom started remotely working like energy healing on my dog. And the next time my dog saw my mom, it like acted like it had never acted before, and like went up and was like rubbing against her, like giving her appreciation sort of stuff. And then it was like also in my younger days, she could just magically tell when I was on drugs when she was doing her energy healing on me. And Wait,
It
okay,
might have
wait.
been more obvious than you realized. I don't
No,
know.
no,
Yeah.
Walking into the wall.
No, I would randomly get a
Okay.
text message, and she would be like, "Bernie, are you doing bad things right
Oh,
now?"
that's the
And I would be
worst.
like, "What the hell?" And
They
it's
call
like,
that-
"Are you watching
That's
me?" But like,
That's
no, like it was,
entanglement, man.
yeah.
How
yeah,
often
like,
were you
seriously.
doing the drugs, though?
That's
Maybe
also
you
a
were just on
probability
drugs
thing.
a lot. She could just randomly spit something out
Yeah, no, but
statistically.
she's also like a medium as well. Goes to like the medium circles.
Something there.
It's a story. Well, I guess I could tell a story right now of how she will always like her father, my grandfather. I never met him. He left my mom when she was like 8 or something. And then I was always like, Mom, like, why don't you like look in to see if he's like passed or anything like that? And she's like, no, he'll come to me in a dream when he dies and I'll know. And sure enough, when he died, the one January night or like close to Christmas or something, my mom like calls me. She's like, yeah, he died. And then her and her sisters applied for the government files. They came in. They found out that I actually have another same 3 aunts. I have another Aunt Darcy, another Aunt Kelly, and another Aunt Sherry. He had a whole nother family just like one city over from where I am. And I have like a whole nother like half family with the same names that I've never met before. Kind of fascinating stuff. Why I got into all of this.
Shazam, your Captain Marvel is this is exactly the same. Weird synchronicities there, just saying.
Yeah, absolutely. But the energy coils and how it ties into, sorry, just lastly to show this thing, and when you spin it in like a circle, but like clockwise and counterclockwise, the Reiki healing, I believe, or like my mom's energy healing, whatever way she was taught, it's like one way is taking the energy out, one way is taking the energy in. And I started like playing with this in the car the other day, and you can like literally feel energy in the palm of your hand. And then I tried it on Amber, and like it was she couldn't hold her hand under it for like under 10 seconds. It was too strong, I guess.
See, to kind of
So
add to this whole thing with man and machine, you might want to look up Professor Haralick, and he's starting to make connections where man and machine, the energies are, conversing together. Also with water, you could actually put your influence into water itself, and the water will absorb this energy. So there is a connection between man and machine. It's just we haven't figured it out yet. I think the ancients, if they were building energy machines, I think they were more in tune with this man and machine mental energy connection between the two devices, yourself and
absolutely.
the apparatus.
I think the biggest hurdle that we've created for ourselves in terms of understanding the technology was this horrible idea of ones and zeros.
Yeah.
Without the 3s, the 6s, the 9s, the 2s, the 4s, and everything else.
Are you just saying you're anti-binary? Just kidding.
And I get that I have to give binary credit because we're literally talking entirely on binary devices, and all of our listeners are listening on binary devices. But I still hate everything about it, and I will never stop hating it.
I'm a bit of an hexadecimal fellow.
See, that's why I built my machine on an analog. I'm using a make and break spark gap switch or auto relay switch. And even Dollar talks about this immensely, saying that you got to keep your energy systems in an analog. He says electronic control systems destroy electricity.
Yeah,
have you thought about why that
honestly,
is?
Like, true power destroys them.
Why is that the case? So when we're looking at
why,
this,
because when you're using an electronic device, it's modulating a natural energy into an unnatural form. Because energy is natural; it's a natural phenomenon.
Yeah.
So this actually comes back to a question someone in the chat asked earlier of what is resistance?
And it's a giant waste of energy into heat, right? It's electrical energy turning into heat, basically.
Well, yeah,
that's what we measure, but that's not what resistance is.
Not technically, no. It's how easy a current can flow over, say, like a copper wire. Like everybody should know by now that electricity does not flow in the wire; it rotates and spins outside the wire. Now,
Exactly.
if you put any kind of electrical voltage over any inductor, there's a magnetic field created. Okay? So it doesn't matter what wire it is. As soon as you got voltage going through it, there is a magnetic field created.
And the beautiful part about that is it literally helps explain Keshe's nano coating and plasma interactions on the outside of the copper wires and the fields.
Well, this goes back to Faraday. This all starts with Faraday. He started realizing that second you had voltage going through a wire, there was a magnetic field created. And that's where it's all started, right with Faraday. So,
yeah, if we take a look at an electromotive force traveling through a conductor, through the transfer of momentum of electrons in that wire or in that conductor, resistance is effectively the scattering from the direct linear path through that conductor into other directions that are not linear. And that can equal heat, it can equal radiated energy, it can equal a lot of different things. But the problem is, if we want to get, say, the force of an electron entering one side of the wire directly out the other side, if there's not a straight path between those two things, where when I put one more particle into one side, if I don't get a particle immediately out the other side because it's got to take the zigzag path, it's more likely to have impacts with other molecules, other atoms, and through their valence shell, move in a direction that's not actually serving the purpose of generating our magnetic or our electric fields. And since electricity is all field effects, resistance is just a scattering problem within that field.
I think the problem. I think the big problem now is, especially today in academia, there's such a big mind virus. You have to go back to the godfathers of electricity and learn the fundamentals right from day one, right? And I think a lot of the education in the universities and colleges, I think they're kind of losing tune with that. You know what I mean?
They're way lost. Not losing, but they are lost. All of our modern academic teachings about the current equations for electrical engineering are based on Heaviside Gibbs' adaptation of Maxwell.
But just even when they teach about Egypt, everything is a joke.
We're operating off the rule of thumb for everything when we should be operating off of really the precise, like the most accurate stuff we can.
Yeah, you have to go back to square one. The founders of electricity, Faraday and J.J. Thomson and
if we use
Steinmetz,
if we use the water analogy for electricity that is so common, if you look at a Tesla valve and how that functions, you can see how the direction of the flow is important. So, because
actually, you know what? Just to kind of add to that, the Tesla valve you're talking about, a lot of people don't know really how a transformer works. There's many theories out there, but Dollard and a few people out there, it's a kind of a big controversy on actual working of a transformer. There's a good video out there with Chris Carson and Eric Dollard. They did it back, I believe it was in 1995, 1996. You can look it up on YouTube. It's still out there. Definitely a good watch. And they talk about the transformer and why a lot of people think they know how it works, but we actually don't know how it works.
Well, those who have really gotten heavy into the design of transformers, they know how it works. The average electrical engineer has no clue.
Exactly.
It's like the classic picture where you have a glass with a couple forks that are bouncing off of a penny. Then you have another one where it's a glass with a couple forks duct taped to it. And then, so that's engineering instead of science. And then you have a third one where it's a glass with coins in it. And it's, I guess everything now that AI is here.
Yeah. I guess I would say this, if you're talking to somebody and you're wondering, do they understand how a transformer works? And they go entirely into the A field and the H field, and they don't incite the necessity of the nuclear magnetic moment, they don't understand how a transformer works.
Yeah. They all think it has to do with the core. I think, there's a couple theories out there. It's like, actually, BurnEye was the one who came up with the idea. It's like two tuning forks. So you ring one, and then the other tuning fork will ring to the same frequency. I think that's partially true with the transformer. It's not all with the core.
Yep. You've got to get down onto the subatomic scale to truly describe the function of a transformer and how energy is transferred from one material into the other.
How about those bells? Right? I look at the transformers and I think about these kind of. Look at that. Does that something? And you've seen the pictures of the glass.
That's an insulator.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just actually that's the kind of stuff that gets me off.
Yeah. Do you think that there's a connection though to like some of these? Maybe that these bells are using insulatory
Those are
stone?
so important. That particular site there is super important.
I kind of wonder if, like, for maybe because stone and glass, sandstone that they make glass out of, maybe they're using stone as natural insulation for some sort of energy thing.
Well, a lot of people, don't think about the dielectric. The dielectric is a huge important part of electricity and transformers, and the transfer from medium to medium, right?
Yeah, and what Eric Teller calls the dielectric field is equally critical. So if you wanted to take a look into what we're looking at there, the Borba Temple, there's, was it Mike from Space YouTube channel. Now, he's covered this in great detail and built devices specifically to investigate those structures. And he's even released a book on it. Geez, I can't remember right offhand what the title of the book is, and you'd think I would. I'll tell you what, I'll get back right to that. Go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking about, while you're finding that, I was thinking about dielectricity because
those bad boys.
That is something completely forgotten or not mentioned, I feel.
Well, the Einstein. See, the problem is.
Sorry, quickly, just the mica line tunnels, and that not just that, the pyramids themselves were covered in mica originally, and the first Mexican authority government of the conquistadors sold it all, and they stripped them off of the pit.
Now, mica, if nobody knows, but their early capacitors were made with mica. It's a dielectric. So is there a connection between these old structures using mica? I think there is.
Oh, absolutely. Mica is an insanely fast dielectric.
And then mercury inside of them, and mica-lined tunnels, and then mica-lined outsides.
Isn't that what was being used in the experiment that Bob Grenier was reporting on just today?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hank Aaron's
and shout out to Bob.
I feel like everyone deserves at least some college credit for looking at this formula right now. Good job, all of you. The idea of the atomic model for dielectricity also, that maybe some electromagnetic energy is produced from the mass interacting with other mass, or electric field interaction with an atom under the classic dielectric model.
See, you don't get electricity unless you have dielectric and magnetism together. Without those two components,
magnetic polarity.
You need the dielectricity and magnetism together. Those two together will become electricity, what we know it. Okay, you cannot have one without the other. I find it interesting
because you know how you use an electromagnetic pulse to create polarity for a magnet, right? More electricity, more magnetic. It kind of sounds like the opposite here. Like you can produce electricity by using.
Well, you don't produce it; you manifest it into your apparatus.
Interesting.
Okay, the energy is already there. Our apparatuses manifest it into the circuit by using a magnetic field with a coil. And this goes back again to Faraday, right?
Right. So
nothing created, nothing destroyed.
But everything is being channeled, and that's interesting.
All right, so back to the power stuff before you have to go, Mike. So you're probably the first of us that's gonna have to leave because it's late for you, and happy birthday to your kid. I just wanted to mention, I'm also doing a power generation system here, which we talked about pre-show, and the way that I'll be testing that is with a resistive load. resistive loads are really nice because they don't have any kind of reactive power problems. They don't shift the phase of your electrical signals or feedback. So in my case, I'm going to be using a bank of incandescent halogen lamps that are all resistive, and I have got switches for each one of those things because the load itself is super critical in terms of tuning the reactance against the coil that's pumping this thing, because the coils do have reactance. So in this case, I'm taking a signal from a monofilar coil, which has an almost symmetrical electric and magnetic field relationship where they're 90 degrees to each other. What a bifilar coil does is really unique at resonance. It shifts the electric field to be in geometric alignment with the magnetic field, so that they're at 0 degrees instead of at 90 degrees at full resonance. And that creates a fundamental change in the way that a bifilar coil couples to a monofilar coil. And it means that the output power that you draw from your bifilar isn't directly correlated to the input power from your monofilar pump coil, because only the magnetic field component is connected. The electric field component isn't. And so if you phase those just right, electrically phase them, you can collect your gains.
Yeah.
And I may get into that into a future show after I've verified it with this load bank.
Yeah, that's cool.
But that's real power right there, you know, actually lighting or heating up a wire, converting it into entirely lossy energy is how we, we get real power.
See, like my machine will actually heat up a 21 watt incandescent bulb. It does heat up, it does create that, but mine's more based on reactive power and impulse electricity, what Tesla was getting into. So
yeah, and in this case, I'll be pumping impulse, but I intend to run 1800 watts with it.
Yeah, and you can do it. Yeah,
these glass insulators are really interesting to me, right?
They are awesome.
Well, I mean, I was just looking at the witch's ball. In the 17th century England, it was really common to make these glass balls to trap witches' spirits, and they somehow just really remind me a lot of the glass power, you know, whatever that was called a second ago. The
old Leyden jar, Leyden jar capacitor.
I need to start making me some monoatomic Ormus Leyden jar, crystal Leyden jar experiments in hydrogen.
You know, and this was all the stuff that the founders of electricity were using to store potential so they can do their experiments, right? You know, and then eventually Volta came out with this pile, you know, the volt pile, you know, that kind of started all the DC power. So it's good to go back in history and see where it all started and all the fundamentals.
I bet we can make like an exponentially more powerful crystal battery like cell or like pile cell that using some of the base salts and then alternating the metals, even like copper and aluminum. And then
the only way you're going to understand electricity is to start playing with it. Learn the basic stuff. Start experimenting. Blow things up like I did tonight. You know,
but in safe conditions.
You know,
I like how the newer insulators look more like pagodas than ever before.
Right? I know.
Yeah.
You're like, calm down, Andreas. It's all right. It's okay. It's
very Jed. It's very the Jed pillar, all the way.
You know, it's one thing to see this stuff on the internet, but to actually get your hands dirty and build this stuff and actually see it work in front of your eyes.
How many times have you shocked yourself working on the Renegade? Just that one?
Oh, just this machine? I don't think I've shocked myself yet. Don't jinx me. No, I haven't had any mishaps. I've been hit pretty hard a few times at 15 kVA.
Yeah,
ceramic capacitor.
The nights after, and you're like texting me like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Mike, don't die, don't do it, don't."
Oh yeah, it makes you jump.
Oh God, it was like somebody put the paddles on me, you know, to restart my heart. Oh yeah, felt like it almost knocked me right off the chair. That's how hard it hit me. It happened so fast, right? It's you got to be careful. Sometimes that could be the last.
Yeah,
right?
don't
so
make
you
it
have,
yours.
You have to respect.
let's donate Mike some more protective safety gear so his children's
I want a Geiger counter. That's what I need.
that too, right? I've got
Yeah.
one, and
You
to
do
be
need one.
honest, they set off around these things. Like when you get to a couple inches around any plasma, they go nuts. And I could only imagine what's going on in Jeremiah's EVO lab sometimes, but we love you, JP.
Oh, I have a lot of fun with those. I can say this much. I have one of the most sensitive Calgary probes I could get. It's a beautiful Ukrainian-made 3-inch window, ultra-high sensitivity probe. It's 17 times more sensitive than the one that comes with the CDV 700 series Geiger counter from the Cold War era, and it's fantastic. I can actually pick up what do they call it, gamma ray bursts and a variety of other astronomical events with this thing. That's what I primarily use to detect the types of emissions coming out of my devices.
Yeah, that's what I'm really curious to see if my generator is doing anything unusual. Because now I'm getting
cool.
up. Yeah, because like,
do you look at it often through the your cobalt lens, like the blue glass?
Yeah. Well, that's something for entirely different, though.
Right. Yeah, for the orgone, or but also that's also like static electricity too, right?
Orgone, yeah, I think it's I think he talked about that, Wilhelm Reich. I think it's like kind of attracts it in the vicinity. If there's a lot of static in the air, the orgone's attracted to it. But yeah, Wilhelm Reich is a whole different thing. You have to really research his stuff.
So the orgone is what other people are calling charge clusters then?
Well, he calls it the life force energy.
Because like I feel like in 20 years, people are not going to be arguing whether any of this exists. They're just going to be arguing about what to call it.
Well, he died in jail. The FDA put him behind bars.
Oh, that's not surprising.
You know, he died, I believe it was like a week or two before he was going to get released. So
I really want to get Andy Rouse to talk about some of these subjects, because something that's been going around, it seems like that the DOE, even perhaps, you know, because the CIA put out some Mockingbird style YouTube videos, and we know that, but that perhaps the Department of Energy has actually been putting out some free energy style videos through pretty small channels, like sub 30K
you know what?
channels.
Well, Dullard was talking about some of the stuff that Steinmetz was working on. He had this rotary electrical converter, and when you had that hooked up into the system, because all the power lines, the entire system, you know, kilometers long of power lines, there's so much internal capacitance in the system that it was able to sustain itself. So, you know, they already had these free energy devices years ago, but, you know, they won't openly admit that to anybody, you know, on the outside, because they're, you know, they want to make money, right?
I was just listening to a podcast with Emery Smith talking about the same exact thing, and how people consistently are coming up with these devices and consistently getting shut down because they want to make money, and it would blow, you know, so many things up.
Yeah.
It really doesn't make sense, though, because it's like wishing to be a king in the Middle Ages. You're still going to be pooping in a pot.
Yeah.
If you're English.
Yeah, I'll just say this much. Screw the Middle Ages. That stuff sucks.
If you're English. I'd rather, if I was in Spain, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, they
what,
had
you'd be pooping in the streets instead?
No, Spain had Moorish bathhouses. We were all civilized. We had bidets.
Bidets.
No, actually, I totally agree with bidets. They are superior. Just non-contested.
Bro.
How did
South
that
Park
change
even
over to...
Well, we're talking the Middle Ages, and as a Spaniard, I get a little offended, you know, because no one remembers Spain in the Middle Ages. We had electricity. That's the thing. If you look at Cordoba, electricity was a big thing.
We didn't forget what Spain did.
nobody, you know, and you'd expect this Spanish
Wasn't a good
Inquisition
thing.
to be pretty
We
terrible.
This is a weird segue. We went from energy to bidets.
They're all connected. They are hydroelectricity. Let's get there. Because all right, where's the Cordoba, Spain wheel? I forget what it's called. The water wheel. They have these giant water wheels, and when you read stories from the 11th century, they say, "Wow, when I came to Cordoba, they had these spinning water wheels. Everything was clean. There were plants growing in the streets in these special parts that were designed for them, and there was lights powered by the water wheel." So they talk about
Right?
It
was hydropower back then. They had them everywhere.
Arabic scientists were working on electricity. And
the golden age of Arabic alchemy.
Yeah. So I'm into it. I just thought that
another good one to look up too, if people like turn of the century energy stuff. You might want to look up Nathan Stubblefield and what he was doing. He was doing, radio transmission during the early 1900s. So
right, and there's stories of the Egyptian lights that were never ending. Sorry to cut you off, Mike.
Yeah, it's okay. Definitely a good read. He was making earth batteries. He was transmitting electricity through the ground.
Just like Tesla. But before
well, Tesla. He was doing before Tesla.
Damn.
Where do you think Tesla was getting some of his ideas from? And apparently Tesla was at his farm, as well as Steinmetz and a few other guys were there checking out what he had.
Right, we're all going to have our ranch here and all meet up with our crazy experiments within
guys.
That's happening this year, Burn.
I gotta head out, guys. It's
for sure, Mike. Bless you, brother. Thank you. And once again, I will post Faraday research for everybody in the live chat to go check out and subscribe for all of Mike's work.
Please donate to it too, because that's stuff that he's working
exactly
with. Expensive.
So Mike's a family man with kids to feed, and this is all his hobby work. That's the donations help all of our experiments.
It's true, but it's funny to call it a hobby because my God, this is serious work. Good job, Mike. This is amazing stuff.
Yeah, 5 years work.
Please don't blow yourself up.
I won't.
And exactly. Well, no, or shock yourself. Don't give yourself a deadly shock.
To shock the audience, not yourself.
Exactly. And on that interlude, actually, I should show this one little video of another upcoming guest. Bless you, Mike. And I put your channel in the chat for everyone to subscribe again.
Take care, everybody.
Have a good night, Mike.
Have a good night, man.
Mike, see you soon.
Take care.
This is Vinny St. Vincent. Roy, shout out Roy, our fellow YouTuber, as he always opens his videos, and his conical shaped Tesla coils that he's experimenting, playing around with in this video experiment. And we will have Roy on. I'm in contact with him to get him on a future next episode of Year of the Coils.
Yeah, Roy's a good guy. Great to have a conversation with over the phone. He's got a long ways to go yet, but he's doing damn good work.
But don't we all?
As far as replications on, well, particularly Edley Scallon stuff, like it.
I like further than
touching that stuff. He's doing an amazing job.
Exactly right. Like just next level, and the fact that he's connecting it with stuff like Tesla's works, like Steinmetz's, like Faraday's, and then with Edley Scallon's and rebuilding the magnetic flywheel, and then connecting it in with these different bifilar coils and Tesla coils, conicals, and all sorts of stuff. I'm definitely jealous of his garage lab, but I got my alchemy.
Yeah, there's not many people really touching that kind of stuff, and he's gotten some pretty good results as far as the Lead Scallon research that I haven't seen replicated by many other places, many other channels.
Absolutely, and he's also into. It seems everybody that gets into this understanding of over unity and anti-gravity and all of it, and the megaverse that the universe truly is, also understand that the megaliths and the ancient sites were a lot more advanced than the BS indoctrination that they try to put on us in our schools today. And Roy himself was just over at, I did a tour of a lot of the megaliths in the UK there, and did a live stream from Stonehenge itself. It was pretty funny watching him get chased around by the security guards and like wouldn't end the stream. Love the guy. Love his spirit. Love what he does. Shout out Roy, Vinny St. Vincent, and I guess I should put his channel for everybody to go over and subscribe and check out as well. Video playing right now.
Oh yeah, definitely. If you are interested in Lead Scallon's work, you have to know about this channel.
You know about Edward Lee Scallon, Anne? You know what I'm talking about? The Coral Castle guy?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. It's a bummer we never made it to Coral Castle when we were in Florida.
Yeah, right? Coral Castle's pretty amazing. Dr.
We're
Longo.
gonna have to do it. Right? We got to do a music festival there one day
Coral
out
Castle.
of Coral Castle and the meetup, right? Because there's Longo there, there's Juan down there, there's Thomas with Paranoid American, and then there's who else is from Florida? There's several podcasters from down there.
Yeah,
Be
pretty
epic.
wild stuff, man. I don't know. I also like these. I like the idea that it's all about the Sweet 16 Virgin magnet motor system, and that so if you read his book and you can kind of decrypt it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
Okay.
Hit the wrong button.
This guy here? Oh yeah. I was just looking at some of the pictures of Coral Castle because it is pretty interesting, and we don't always look at some of these really nice pictures of it. They're like these kind of up-to-date pictures, but it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I did an episode with Campbell on it where I showed a bunch of Charlie C,
nice.
where he went there and he shared a bunch of his original photos of the site from just a couple years ago. It was really epic, but we played one small clip. Campbell played a clip, I think that was like History Channel or something, that got the whole fucking video taken down, and It turned out I only showed half of the photos of Charlie's anyways. I missed some of the most epic, so we should do a new episode on Coral Castle going forward.
You know how like they shot, what was it, the Avengers or one of those, Captain America? They shot one of those movies at like the CERN linear accelerator, and they shot another one at like this NASA place that no one can go. I feel like that's what you got to do. Nobody cares about CERN really, but you just want to put it in front of everybody. We should just shoot movies and TV shows at Coral Castle. It could just literally be Smallville. It would
be epic.
Doesn't really matter. It doesn't even matter what it's about. Just shoot it there so that everyone has
Year
to see
one, it will just be us camping out, doing Science of Sound episode there, having Ominous perform, and Jeremiah, I'm sure, will definitely lay down.
Why have not more bands shot their like concerts, like Pink Floyd and Pompeii? Why are there not more? I just like these places are just not being shown to people. It's weird.
Sorry, shout out Philip on Facebook, brother. I emailed you the link to join in tonight if you are available and want to hop on here for the second half to cover some of the electroculture and some of your coil stuff. If it's too late at night for you, I understand, and we will aim for next week. Sorry for the short notice, but yeah, I sent you a link. If you didn't get it, let me know, because I thought I sent it before the show started.
I think these kinds of things don't get shown to people because that would get people thinking, and we don't want to do that.
But that's the thing. Is it that it's so obvious? It's so terrifyingly. It could be that easy. They just don't want people to think about Coral Castle because it seems like if you owned Florida, you'd want the money you could make off the tourism of Coral Castle. But instead, it's just kind of you can kind of see it if you want to see it, but it's so not really taken to the level it should be.
So is it the kind of thing that even the people who live right next to it don't even bother to go see it, or?
That's what it sounds like. A lot of people I know from Florida have never gone to it.
Yeah, really under popular as far as a tourist attraction.
I feel like they do this on purpose. So like when I went to Argentina, you know, like the nuclear reactor, you can't get there unless you swim there. You can't take a boat. There's a guy who will rent a boat to you unless you tell him you're going there. You know what I mean? So there's these places that just feel the most interesting places that you'd want to go to, that at least if you were there, you'd read the plaque and be like, dang, that's an interesting story. Those are the places they don't want you to see. And that feels pretty suspicious. That is a conspicuous circumstance.
Well, and it's almost like it's got an energy that keeps you from it. Like we were in Florida, we wanted to go, and yet we wound up going to the Disney World, water park
Disney
instead.
World suck you in?
To be fair, I get the feeling that whatever they stole from Edward Lee Scanlon's at Disney World now. So whatever, because
technology being applied.
And in those black suits, let's be real. Like they took the motor apart. You know, that's the whole story, right? The motor,
the flywheel.
They took this apart. But if you go to Disney World, I mean, the idea of Disney World is really weird, really interesting place. And did you know there's no mosquitoes at Disney World?
Yeah, they put stuff in the water, right?
It's beyond that. It's more fascinating. Sure. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Chemicals.
Hey, I just want to mention this because it's time relevant.
They let water flow, so that there's no stagnating water at Disney World for the entire 50 square miles. All the water is flowing, so it's impossible for mosquitoes to be there. Sorry, you said Jeremiah.
Oh yeah, it was time relevant. So I haven't received anything from academia.edu. About Richard Van Durk in a while, but as soon as I mentioned his name earlier, and this is how I know that my phone is listening, because it just emailed me one of the documents by Van Durk interacting complex electric fields. So yeah, it's certainly listening.
Hey Bixby. But the solar panel field, there's a lot. My TV's listening to me because I said Bixby. Stop it, Alexa. Siri, go away, all of you.
All the viewers who have smart devices just swearing at you right now.
I'm a terrible person, but
that's why I have none of that stuff turned on.
But underneath
it's all listening.
All of Disney World, you've got this giant underneath area as well. So I mean, if there were a better place to put free energy research, let me know. But I think Disney World
or portals. Look at those 3 cylinders. That's like a CERN and a CERN on top and a CERN to the left.
That's like a CERN on a CERN on a CERN. Yeah.
The Imagineers is actually a pretty cool organization, or it was.
I'm sure they've had CERNs and
probably the same.
I'm certain out here, guys. I'm certain out.
I certainly have to give a shout out to Setneg. Thank you so much for the $22 donation. Sorry I'm late, Burn peeps. Check out Walt Thornhill. Excellent researcher with the Electric Universe, and he also does the Sapphire Project, I believe. Victor Schauberger, of course, an epic legend of 100 years ago, and the replication of nature in science, vortex-based.
Yeah, watch that Victor Grebenikov science water video. Watch the documentary on Schauberger with his grandson for sure.
And Victor Grebenikov. Maybe we should cover a little Victor Grebenikov in the second half. He's the one with like the flying insect stuff in the Soviets.
How do I spell his name?
Grebenikov. Yeah.
Grebenikov. I got it.
Grebbnikov.
It's right there at the bottom of the screen, right?
Yes.
Well, now you're just trying to make it easy for me.
She's clever, this one.
So I really like the concept.
It wouldn't be the first time I've had to tell Andreas to use his eyeballs to do something.
I don't like to look for the fine print. I don't know.
Take what resonates, leave the rest. Setnag, thank you for the support.
Is this him levitating?
Yes, supposedly that is a device that he built under the Soviets using these beetle wings, and depending on the the direction of the planks that the wings were attached to, it would levitate. And I would like Jeremiah's.
I want to see it.
Jeremiah's advice.
Well, okay, I will mention this. A funny thing happens on the molecular scale when you have a large electrostatic field fluctuating going through a chiral material, and unfortunately that's all I can say.
Okay, well, I will say that I really like looking at really like high quality SEM images of the beetle wing covers, because what you have is basically a flat-ish surface that has pits in it that have little pyramids sticking out that just
Yes, right. They're
barely
nano
poke
pyramid
above the
structures.
surface.
I know
So you have a
exactly what you're
whole
talking about.
bunch of these in a hexagonal array, which I love. Yeah, so it's exactly the kind of stuff that I've been modeling recently.
The nano coating layer you want in your 3D printed outer shell, right? Like the geometry of it.
Yeah, and I will mention, your recent work, with the layout disc that has all these pyramids printed on it. That was pretty freaking great. We actually considered constructing one of those, and particularly the hexagonal pyramids is precisely what I was looking for. And it goes in concert with another device I'm working on and have been working on for some time that I'm just calling the Gravity Lifter. It operates quite different from the Gravity Flyer, but it uses the same fundamental principle. It just does it without any moving parts.
That's always epic. Just like the ionic thruster, right? Of plasma channel, no moving parts in the propulsion.
Yeah, I thought those videos were funny, but he's way off. I've gotten already 8 times better results than he will probably ever achieve, and that's assuming that he's going to continue to progress to the point where he'll hit the roadblock that everybody hits that goes deep into this stuff. I mean, he's already seen the results of that roadblock. There is diminishing returns, and there's something that you can do to get around it, which unfortunately I also can't talk about.
Didn't Grebennikov end up really sick later in life?
Yeah, he apparently died of some kind of foot cancer because he exposed himself to what he described in his book as lepton radiation.
This is the same Grebennikov that we were just looking at.
The flying platform.
So
Bob Marley died of foot
cancer. An anti-gravitational effect also produces 2 other phenomena. It produces a temporal distortion and a byproduct of radiation. These are unfortunate outcomes of a system that operates at very high voltage and uses charge acceleration and charge splitting.
Have you heard the conspiracy theory that they killed Bob Marley by radiating him and that he didn't actually have melanoma of the foot, but he actually got like a weaponized...
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
I genuinely have no idea.
Pretty out there.
It sounded out there
pretty,
until you
pretty known.
Until you found out about the BBC.
You're right.
When you look into the BBC and what Bob Marley and Peter Tosh were doing, and they were in the process of building a Jamaican radio station that was going to divorce Jamaican politics of the British control of the Commonwealth, it actually makes crazy amounts of sense.
Yeah, and if you just listen to the lyrics in the songs, of course
It
the government
tells you.
would not be very happy with him. So
exactly. And shout out Stephen Callan. Haha. Float on Air by Will It Works Inventions.
I'm gonna do a show with Stefan soon. He woke me up.
Nice. Shout out Stefan. You made this portion happen. All right. So
even Peter Tosh was
Will
actually
It Works?
assassinated in his home right after he started Rasta Reggae Radio. And so there's just a bunch of people that died all around that time that were just really suspicious stuff. But he was totally just shot. But Bob Marley, it was like a more intense down taking. I don't know. It's worth looking into.
They would have had
Scott,
crazy rides.
If you don't mind me asking, Scott, the cancer that he got, do you have any idea if he was working with pulsed klystron radar tubes? Because we know those produce this type of energy. I'm just curious. I'm sure that he wasn't really able to talk too much about that when he came home, but I'm wondering if you had, overheard him, mentioning anything about pulsed klystrons or the types of equipment that was used or that he was working on.
Right, and like that's the thing is so much of these different plasmas and cold fusion and even the electrolysis and the arcing, the electrical, all of it, the EM fields that it can cause these radiations and these harmful energies and poisonings, and that it explains why there's so many researchers, alchemists, and different scientists of the past that were all claimed to be fraudsters, but died of these same health effects due to the severity and reality of the radiation and poisonous materials they're working with.
Yeah,
You know,
a klystron and an X-ray tube, as far as their physical construction, they look different from the side diagram if you've never seen these tubes before, but if you understand how tubes work, you'll recognize that they're both operating by the same principle, and they both produce the same type of radiation.
I just find it very funny that, and younger people won't understand it, but when I was young and cell phones were just coming out, people were really, really scared of them. Like, they did not want them anywhere near them. And suddenly that changed in like the early 2000s, I want to say.
Well, let's remember that freaky incident of how microwaves,
Look at
how
those
microwave
graphics.
was discovered.
Dude,
right? The guy
anti-cell
had
phone
this
radiation
candy
and
bar
propaganda.
allegedly that melted because of the output from the radar transmitters. And if that doesn't kind of freak you out, like, why is this candy bar melting? That doesn't seem like something I should be standing in.
Or putting right next to your jewels.
It was such a thing, though. Even other phone companies like Nokia would be like, look at what other cell phones do to your head compared to ours. And it was like, oh my God, bro. Duh.
Yeah, and since BurnEye, you're posting your Rumble stuff here, I will mention that Mike from Space on Rumble, that's where he posts the good stuff.
Oh, okay. I will have to find him on Rumble right now then.
One day we're going to have to do a stream where we just like start on YouTube and do like 5 minutes and just say, okay, here's the link to the Rumble stream. Just
No,
go
we do
there.
the first hour on YouTube or the first 2 hours on YouTube, and then the next 2 to 4 hours on Rumble and Twitch and the rest of them. And that's how it's going to be going down.
Just because there's like so much stuff that you can't actually discuss on YouTube, and it's going to get so much worse if you're Canadian. Because that law just passed.
And I'm sure Rumble will ignore it for as long as they are possibly able to get away with it.
Right? Exactly. And
YouTube,
OdySee.
on the other hand, will implement it before the law is even passed. So, screw them.
I'm surprised Parler hasn't tried to get into live streaming yet.
Parler, who's that?
Oh, that's one of the Twitter clones.
Yeah. What is Parler? Parler's the who makes that one?
Well, now it's owned and run by Candace Owens' husband.
Oh. Okay.
But prior to that, I don't know actually who created it, but it was the platform that got shut down that everybody was up in arms about.
Yeah.
Because it got taken off of the app stores and off of the Amazon.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't have
Amazon servers because of the January 6th.
They didn't have the software wasn't very good, so it was really